up, people?
What's up?
Y'all ready for some maniac shit?
Ready to go wild?
Ready to talk about music?
Ready to jump off the deep end?
You ready to jump off a building?
Ready to jump off a cloud?
Whoa. Hey, relax.
Out of control.
Let's not get crazy over here.
Sorry.
We can get maniacal, but we can't get crazy. There's levels to this shit.
There are levels. There are.
All right, so thanks for being here, everybody. If y'all don't know, we're Side After Dark, a.k.a. The Music Maniacs, because we like music and sometimes we go a little wild.
We do.
And we're probably going to go a little wild today because we got a really good topic. One of the most legendary bands that's ever existed. One of the biggest bands that's ever existed. A band that completely revolutionized like stage shows, what music and concept albums are, all that good stuff.
Right here on Earth.
Right on this planet, the one that we're on right now. Obviously, we're talking about NSYNC.
That's right.
And by NSYNC, I mean Pink Floyd. Yeah!
Woohoo!
Everybody make some noise for Pink Floyd. Yo, what if we did a live podcast one day? That'd be crazy.
Man,
And then we could actually hype people up.
Yeah.
One day.
Yeah.
Would you guys come?
Yeah.
Tell us in the comments.
Yeah. Sit in. We can rent a space. It'd be awesome.
Okay, so we're talking about Pink Floyd.
The one and only.
The one and only. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
It's just like...
I'll start by saying, like, you have been influenced by Pink Floyd and you probably don't even know it.
Or you really know it.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of in between. You're like, what? I don't care about them. But then in the back of your head, they're like, yeah.
Yeah.
Or it's like, no, I fucking love Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I just got to say this. I remember walking into a house party one day, and, you know, just like I said, there's always rooms where somebody's inside listening to, like, awesome music. I stepped in the threshold for, like, 3-4 seconds and didn't recognize the song. And I was like, who is this? And you should have seen the stares I got. Like, it was insane. Like, people were like I had 5 heads.
I believe it. They're just like, what? Who are you? Where are you from?
Why you even came?
It's not this planet.
Definitely.
But no, I got a huge shout out before we even get into it. So Pink Floyd was my dad's favorite band. So I always grew up listening to them. And the first concert I ever actually went to was Roger Waters.
That's awesome.
When I was like 12.
Did you enjoy it?
I did, but it's funny because I think about it now. I don't think I appreciated it as much. Like, if I went there now, I would appreciate it so much more. No. But I was 12. I knew most of the songs at the time, but I was kind of like, you know, ADD, just kind of like running around and shit. Okay. I wasn't really like trying to sit in my chair.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Young Dan's like, who's this big-headed doofus? No, just kidding.
No, our seats weren't that good. I'm like, who is that?
Oh, man.
but no, it was a good time. So we got to talk about Pink Floyd. And it's really cool because... There's 3 versions of Pink Floyd, basically.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different variations in the history and the people and what the music sounds like and who the leader is.
Yeah.
You know, all this shit.
Yeah.
But we got to bring it back to London.
Yep.
London town. Where there were a couple architecture students.
Yeah.
3 of them.
Yeah.
By the names of Roger. Waters. Nick.
Mason.
The Stone Mason, as we refer to him now. And then Richard.
Close.
Wrong. Richard wrong. No, clearly Richard right. Because he knows how to play those keys right. All right? You know it. And so they were architecture students, but they wanted to be in a band. Because who doesn't want to be in a band?
Exactly. Who wants to draw?
Yeah.
Well, I do. But...
Who wants to draw things that actually will become buildings and actual things in society in real life?
That's right. I'd rather draw memorable album covers.
I'd rather draw on the air with my instrument.
Exactly.
Right?
I'd rather construct a song.
Yes. I like that. So they were like, yeah, let's construct some songs. So it's the 60s. They're in London. You know, the British invasion was already happening. The Beatles were the big thing. All the British groups were trying to be like American rock and roll and like blues people.
Yeah.
So they started out just playing like blues songs.
Yes.
Like pretty typical shit.
Yeah. My mama done told me.
And for all intents and purposes, when they were doing that, it didn't really go anywhere.
Because people didn't believe that they mama done told them anything.
Yeah, I don't even think they have moms.
Exactly.
They only have dads.
They were pods.
Yeah, they were from labs. They were born in labs. So then Roger's friend from childhood was this guy named Syd Barrett.
Who he had met at a Saturday afternoon art class.
That sounds lovely.
Yeah, exactly.
It sounds like a place where you would go to meet a crazy bandmate.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so Syd, because they were not from London, right? They were somewhere else, like Birmingham or some shit.
Yes, it's pretty much outside. I'm starting to think like this is just like a major city with like a little like boroughs right outside of it in a way.
London?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
I don't know. Tell us about London. We're
Please
a bunch
do.
of uncultured Americans.
Uh-huh.
Sorry. We're very easily impressed. But so Syd comes down to London. And he's like, yeah, like I like what you guys are doing with this whole music thing. Let me get in on this.
Yes.
And Syd was quite a character.
Yes.
Some would say he was quite mad. He was a bit crazy from the beginning. He was always kind of a quirky guy.
Yeah, from the beginning. So we can actually blame Roger for all of this.
It's all...
How about that, Raj? No,
Oh,
just
man.
kidding. He would be enraged.
I think at this point he's just like, it is what it is. But so Syd comes down to hang out with his boy Raj and the boys Nick and Dick. And so he's a quirky guy. Like they even said like even like the way he walked, he would just like always be just like
Yeah.
up, just like, you know, up like uplifting. And they were like, I don't know, like something about the way that Roger said it. He was like, even he walked weird, like. He had just a very different vibe about him.
Yeah, it's like David says he was like, you know, he was beautiful to look at. He had a stride. He walked like this. He talked interesting, and then he paused and he was like, I don't want to make this sound like a love song, but that's what I was thinking when David was talking about him. I was like, damn, you love this guy.
And it's funny because David Gilmour eventually replaces him.
Yes, he does.
But we'll get to that.
Yes.
So Syd is just like. He's just a wild, quirky guy, and he brings two. I don't know, were they called Pink Floyd yet, or he made the name, right?
Yeah, he made the name, and then I want to say this too. Like they actually proposed the name called the Megadeths.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but then the universe was like, hold on, guys.
We got to save that.
We got to save that for later.
I heard they were originally going to be the Metallicas.
Nope.
No? Oh, man. I must have got my stories mixed up. Sorry. So Syd comes in, and he's like, we're going to rename the band. It's the Pink Floyd sound.
Right.
Because they got it from the two
different albums. Blues albums. Pink somebody, and then someone
Somebody
Floyd.
Floyd.
Yes, and he put those together.
Tell us who the original Pink and Floyd respectively were, because we don't remember.
Yeah. By the way, which one's Pink?
I don't know if there is one.
Okay.
I'll have to check the records.
Okay.
But now it's the Pink Floyd sound, and Syd Barrett's like, I'm doing my own shit. I'm not just doing this R&B American stuff. Like I'm doing my whole quirky like weird shit.
Yes.
And
yes.
it, you know, I wish there was a nicer way to say it, but he's like, I'm a weird fucking guy and I'm going for it.
Yeah. He pulled out his Mad Hat.
Yeah.
Right? Mad Hatter, he's born over there in London too. So maybe Syd knew him. But he pulls out the hat of all different types. And it's like he's like a wizard in a way. He just wanted to throw everything up against the wall and try it out.
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to let's just make music. You know, let's make art.
Right. He was a very arty kind of guy. I mean, he kind of came in, he was like, we're going to kind of like just not ruin, but like destroyed the idea of like the typical song. It's like, yeah, we'll do a riff and then we'll jam for 10 minutes and then we'll go back to the riff and that's a song. You know what I mean? Which is not something that people were really doing at the time.
Right.
And then also just like his lyrics were just like, you know, very like mystical and like almost like full of wonder in a way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was just a very different vibe than what was going on with other bands.
Right.
So he very quickly became the leader of the band.
Yeah, because it was new, it was interesting. People were pretty much just singing about either love or, you know, the
hate.
conditions. Yeah, either love or hate. I was about to say love or war. And now this guy is like somewhere in between and just proposing a whole different style of theories. And trains of thought, so of course that's gonna draw in a bigger crowd. More people are gonna be interested and stuff like that, and then that's gonna push you to the forefront of the band too.
Right. And it's really interesting because during this time they basically became like the leading band of like the British like underground like art rock scene or whatever you want to call it,
which is cool. It's cool. I'm a sucker for bands and music groups when they first start out. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, once I see you hit big, I almost hate you. Like, I can't stand
How dare you be successful?
You know what I mean? How dare you? I look at the album, I'm like, best album of all time. Oh, good God.
Like, sure.
Like, whatever. Like, no. But I mean, it's great to see when people like unfold and really blossom and become huge successes and stuff like that. But it's even better for me when it's just like, they're just so young and small, and it's like you can see that getting ready to pop, like it's like, yeah. So I love that. I love the new beginnings of things. So that must have been awesome to kind of follow them around from pub to pub or playing space to playing space and watch Pink Floyd grow.
Right. Yeah, no, that must have been a really cool time. And they grew pretty quickly because they got signed. They got signed to the same label that the Beatles were signed to. And they were recording in the same studio that the Beatles were recording in.
Yeah,
which is a big deal.
Yes.
Like, they were talking, the Beatles were the biggest band in the world. Mm-hmm. And, like, 2 years ago, you were just playing cover songs and nobody gave a shit about you. Mm-hmm. And then now all of a sudden, your goofy friend comes in and you're making this crazy music and you're getting signed to the label that has the biggest band in the world, and you're recording in the same room that they're fucking recording in, or like the room next door.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're recording, and they're, Syd is making all of his super trippy songs, and he at this time starts to get into a little bit of drugs, a little bit of hallucinogens.
Just a little bit.
Which was really, groundbreaking at the time, because I don't know if you guys knew this, but London in the 60s, they weren't into drugs.
No.
Nobody did drugs in the 60s.
Never.
But
ever.
He's like, I'm going to do all the drugs.
Yeah. I'm going to be the first drug addict ever. Drug doer.
So he was already, a little off, but then you add a bunch of acid to it, it's not going to help your sanity.
Yeah, I think I'm going to quote the Joker here, where he says, like, with insanity, it's like all you need is a little push off the deep end. Like,
right.
Yeah, that's
so
scary.
Syd was already kind of like walking that line when they recorded their first album, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn.
Yes.
Which is super trippy album.
It's super
Even
trippy.
to this day.
To this day. Yeah, but really interesting, though. Like, I dug it.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting because also, like, you got to think, like, so, yeah, they were just, in the pubs or whatever, like, small venues, and then all of a sudden they're signed and they're in this studio, which is, like, the most sophisticated studio probably in the planet at the time. So there's all these, like, instruments and, like, things that they would never have had access to before that they get into the studio, and they're just, like, kids in a fucking candy store. They're like, ooh, let's try this. Ooh, let's try this. They're trying all these just, like, different random sounds, and they're just, like, putting things onto a record that, like, people wouldn't have thought to do.
Right. I mean, and it's so interesting about like psychedelic rock and progressive rock and stuff. It's like, the drugs kind of do open up the gates for all of those weird sounds and things like that, but they're not.
Open up the gates of dawn?
They do. At the gates. They open the gates at the gates. But it's just like, it's so terrible, like, to be like sucked into the drug a part of it. Like, and not be able to come out, because psychedelic rock, I can see like how let's just say like a psychedelic pattern, right? It kind of like jumps out at you and all this stuff like that. Like psychedelic rock is like that too. And prog rock is like that too. Little sounds here and there and stuff like that. So what I've heard about like an acid trip, because I've never done acid before and I've never done LSD, but what I've heard about those trips is like, that's how things jump out at you. And then all of a sudden, you're in a different realm or whatever. So the music emulates the actual drug.
Yes. Let's say hypothetically I've done acid. I would say that that's pretty accurate. Hypothetically, of course. Yeah, no, it is really true. It makes sense, like, when you see, like, what psychedelic music is. If you've done any psychedelics, you're just like, oh, I get where this kind of comes from. You know what I mean? And again, so at this point, Syd is the undisputed leader, and he's writing all the songs, and he's kind of becoming, like, the star of the band as well. Because he was by all accounts, you know, he was goofy, but he was a very charismatic guy.
Yeah.
Like, people wanted to be around him. People wanted to be his friend. Mm-hmm. But now you kind of have a double-edged sword coming up because now they're starting to get, like, famous.
Yes.
And, like, you know, that is not good for mental health in general.
No.
But now not only are you getting famous, but you're just doing ridiculous amounts of acid. Mm-hmm. And you're really just frying your brain.
Yeah.
To the point that your reality is just becoming completely distorted.
Yeah. The coping mechanism for the fame is, for a lot of people, is the drugs. Like, you know what I mean? Because one, you're the big bad rock star, right? And you're on stage, so you have to be like unabated. Like, you have to act as if nothing bothers you, nothing can touch you or whatever. But at the same time, it's just like for, like you said, like for mental health, so many people coming up to you and talking to you. Mm-hmm. Like, it's more now than just a good party one day, 2 days a week.
Right. You got to always be on.
Now, yeah. You know what I mean? Like, that is a lot to deal with. And I'm just going to throw this out there too, because I know, like, there's like a stiff upper lip kind of British thing. So vulnerability and stuff like that. Like, I think I'm losing my mind. I don't think I can take this. I don't know how far, like, that's probably not going to come into conversation.
Push it down.
You know what I mean?
Push it down. Nobody wants to hear it. Right? As that's the British way.
That's right.
But so yeah. So, but that it's a really interesting thing because this kind of plants a seed for what becomes a bigger deal with them later. Is that they're kind of not. They don't really want to. They don't like the fame really, and they want to be playing their music, but they don't really necessarily want to be known. So they start. They have like these light shows. And they have all these other things going on at the show to kind of take the spotlight away from them.
Right.
Like, they don't want people to be looking at them playing the music. They just want to, like, you go to the show and it's like a whole, experience.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is really cool. We'll bring up that later. How that,
very cool.
That kind of continues with them, even after Syd's gone. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But so now they're huge, but they're not really comfortable with it, or they're getting really big. Yeah. I wouldn't say they're definitely not as huge as they became.
Right. Yeah. They're not about to hit tours and stuff yet, but notoriety is good. And England is not that big.
That's true. That is very true. Mm-hmm. So then, they're becoming a really big band. Syd is the undisputed leader. Like, he writes all the songs, basically. He gives them their whole... Again, he gave them the spark that led to their success. They existed before Syd, and they were going nowhere.
Right.
And then Syd came in with some completely different shit, and then now things are happening for them.
Yeah.
So it really, Syd became like the trampoline for them to get them moving and bouncing.
He was the Bon Scott.
Yeah. Syd Barrett, Bon Scott, if he stayed in England.
Yeah.
Or if he moved to England from Scotland, whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Anyway.
UK all day.
UK, yeah. Let's go. So, okay, so they put out Piper at the Gates of Dawn. It does very well. Mm-hmm. But basically, as they get more and more successful, Syd's mental health becomes less and less successful.
Yeah.
Like,
starts to decline seriously.
He's just real, like, apparently it was like a pretty fast decline too.
Yeah, and they said they were doing things like this. Hey, Dan, what are you doing Tuesday night?
I don't know. What's up?
Okay, well, I'm just going to go hang out at 317 East Houston. I'm just going to grab a coffee from around there and then stay there for like 3 or 4 hours, but that's it. And I'm going to come back home.
You're not going to play any music at the venue?
I'm just going to get a coffee and I'm coming right back home. That's it. So if anybody tells you that they saw me there, I was just there for coffee.
Are you sure? Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, if that's what you want to do, I guess.
Yay.
You don't want to play shows?
Oh. Side After Dark. See
okay. So 317 Houston Street is a venue that we play at, where we actually met at.
Yeah.
For y'all, little Side After Dark trivia there. So Syd is just kind of declining, and then his old friend comes to like hang out with the band, this guitarist named David Gilmour.
Yes.
And he knew Syd from back in the day, and he said immediately when he went to London, he saw Syd and like the look in his eyes. He was like, "What's going on with Syd?"
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? He immediately was like, "This is not like the kid that I knew growing up."
Not at all. And we just want to say that when David Gilmour walked into that room and saw Syd, he didn't know it, but they were like angels singing in the background as he like walked in. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the true story. Straight from the angel's mouth to my ears. So now their friend David was there, and he was like, whoa, something's off with Syd. But he was like, I don't know if I just like caught him on a weird day, or like I didn't know how big of a deal it was.
Yeah.
But it ended up being kind of a big deal because it just got to the point where Syd's mental health just declined so far that he couldn't be in a band anymore.
No.
My favorite story from this era was, this is kind of funny but kind of fucked up. So he had this song, or he went into a rehearsal once. He was like, "Hey guys, I got a new song for you. It's called Have You Got It Yet?" And they're like, "Okay, how's it go?" And he's like, "It goes like this, do 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 do." And they're like, "Oh, it's like do 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 do." He's like, "No, it's like do 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 do." And they're like, "Oh, okay, so it's like do 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 do." He's like, No. It's like this, do 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 do. And they're just kind of looking at him like, "Huh?" And he's like, "Have you got it yet?"
Oh, Syd, you cad.
And the thing is, that's actually hilarious as just like a little prank. Mm-hmm. But this wasn't a prank. Like, he was being dead serious. Mm-hmm. And it's like, if you're a band and that's your job is to make music, and at this point, like, the record label's like, "Yo, we need another single, we need more music, blah, 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 blah," and your leader is coming in doing shit like that, you're like, what are we doing?
No.
Like, nothing is getting done. Like,
exactly. Those are those time is money situations where it's like, no.
Yeah, and I can only imagine the rest of the band was just kind of like, "Bro, are you serious?"
Yeah, they had to be upset at that. Like, even though it's funny, it's like, no. Because it's like you're signed now. So it's like once you're in the studio, it's like the clock is on. It's like you can't even really hang out. You know, they haven't gotten to the level where they can just walk into the studio and like shit around. Like,
right. They're still proving themselves. Mm-hmm. So now Syd is just fully off his fucking rocker.
Absolutely. And
they kind of brought David back to just kind of like fill in, just kind of like, they didn't necessarily bring him in to replace Syd.
Right.
Because in their heads, they're like, this is the guy that writes all of our songs. He's the guy that's brought us here. They don't want to get rid of Syd.
Yeah.
That's the last thing they ever want to do.
Yeah. And then I also too, like, this is like before the whole like counseling therapy boom. You know what I'm saying? This is when people shook you and slapped you in the face and told you to, like, you know,
push it down.
Get it together.
You don't have emotions. They don't exist. They're not real. But so now for a brief period, there's 5 members in Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
And basically what David realized is, like, he was just there to basically try to play Syd's guitar parts because he was just going fucking wild.
Yeah.
And at one point, they were going to a gig and they just didn't pick up Syd.
Yeah.
They just were like...
It's fucked up. Sorry.
It is fucked up, but it's like... I guess, you know, I think about it now, it probably has something to do with that, is like the pushing it down, and like they weren't necessarily... I mean, they were his... He was obviously their friend, but I don't think they were seeing it like, oh, he clearly needs like a lot of help.
Yeah, no.
I think they were kind of seeing him as a burden at that point.
Because also too, like, I could see this train of thinking and stuff like that, like where it's like, how could you be so quote unquote weak to let a drug really take over your mind like that? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Where it's like you can't get control of it, you know? So I think I'm almost positive, 100% positive that's where their train of thinking is coming from, you know?
Yeah. And it's just a sad thing all around. But, so they, you know, they're still signed. They still got to put that music out. Mm-hmm. So then they have a second album called Saucerful of Secrets, which was partly songs that were already recorded with Syd.
Yeah.
So this is the last album that Syd appears on.
Yeah.
And fun fact, there's a song on there, Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun, that there's a few guitar tracks on there from Syd, and there's some guitar tracks on there from David.
Yeah.
So that's technically the only song that all 5 members were ever on.
Yeah. That's,
you know,
interesting. And
that's a good song.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was going to say they don't make bad songs, but, you know.
They've experimented.
Yeah, they've made some interesting ones.
They're not all hits, you know. They're not all bangers. But yeah, so it got to a point where it's like Syd just couldn't... He was just not in a mental space to be a productive member of anything, really.
Yeah, they would be on stage and he would just be standing on stage staring into the crowd, you know, and you can't do that when you're lead vocals.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can't do that if you do anything, like, unless you're like, I don't know, just back up and they just send you there to be weird.
Security.
But again, like, this is it's one thing to lose a lead singer. It's another thing to lose your lead songwriter.
Right.
Because the song is the currency of music. Like, if you don't have somebody to write a song, you don't have anything. It doesn't matter how good you can play. It's like there needs to be that spark.
Yeah, for sure. And that had to be like really scary for them too, you know, because it's like one thing to like not pick up Syd, but it's another thing to like, okay, like, well, what are we gonna do now without Syd? Because he clearly can't do this.
He clearly can't do it, and it's really something like the downfall of Syd is really something that kind of haunted the band through the rest of their career. He was kind of like the ghost, like hovering above them, because it's like, it's not like he just couldn't play music anymore. Like, he literally, his life was done. Like, he literally, after that, like, he basically went into like more or less an asylum, and that was basically the whole rest of his life until he died in like 2006. Like, he never really did shit again. I think he had like a solo album or two of stuff that was already recorded.
I think so.
But he was never, you know,
back in it,
a sane quote unquote person ever again.
Which is I don't even know how the mind works like that. That's crazy. But it's a shame. It's a shame that happened to him, and because it's like it's worse than a death.
It's really interesting you said that, because I just saw something with Roger, recent interview with him where Syd died in 2006, and they were asking Roger about it, and he was like, I felt like I did all my grieving 30 years ago. Because he basically died, but he was still around. He was just a shell of himself.
Right.
You know? And that's obviously something that's going to take a toll on you as, you know, as your band. That's your friend. You know what I mean? That's not something you just, like, forget about.
Right.
But now you get to a point where there's still 4 members, but it's not Syd anymore. Now David is kind of taking over the Syd spot. He's singing, he's playing guitar. But they're kind of more or less lost for direction, because again, your lead guy is gone.
He's gone, and you're dealing with the memory of him. You know, you still have talent, and you know, you want to put the music out there, and you still love what your band leader left you with, right? So how do you pick up the pieces? How do you go? Thank goodness for them being friends, right? And kind of like understanding each other in each other's like thought process, artistic, creative space. And I think that's what helped them pick up the pieces and make a new Pink Floyd, a new order.
Yeah. And it's just really interesting how it went, because now that Syd's gone, they still have a record contract, but everybody around them is just like, oh, Pink Floyd's done. Syd Barrett was Pink Floyd. What the fuck are they going to do now? You know what I mean? So they're like, well, it's a double-edged sword with what you were saying about what Syd left behind, because part of them is probably like, oh, well, we need to keep doing this.
Right.
But they can't do that, because they're not Syd.
Right.
They can't really do it like that. So they have like kind of a blueprint, but they're like, no, we need to figure out what works for us now, because we're a different group of people.
Right.
So then now they go through like a couple albums, really, where they're really just trying to like find who they are now.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting, because that would never happen now. Like, as far as being signed.
Oh, yeah, no.
The record label would not give you the opportunity to do that.
No. They would have had, like, you know, they would have been like, guys, you got to put on some shorts. You got to do something. We got to sell these records.
You got to go to the gym more. You got to wear less clothes. But, so now they're just kind of, like, trying to figure out what works. So then they put out a few albums, Uma Guma. Atom Heart Mother, and they're just throwing shit at the wall, basically. I mean, they're trying everything. They're trying, you know, they're taking influence from like other stuff that's going on in music, as far as like people are like doing crazy things with their pianos to make them sound weird, and they're just throwing all kinds of sound effects in. One of my favorite stories, at one point, Roger was like, guys, I got a great idea. What if we did a whole album? We didn't use any instruments. All the sound is just from household items.
That's awesome, Roger.
You know what I mean? Like, you get a can of coffee and you just and that's the beat of the song. Like, they're really just throwing everything out there just to see what works. And fucking Nick is like, Roger, what are you talking about? Like, no, we're not doing that, dude.
Nick is like, I quit.
Not yet.
Not yet.
So
the only ones that quit died, or left the band died.
Whoa.
You're not allowed to leave Pink Floyd, baby.
Yeah, Pink Floyd never leaves you. But now David is there, and by the way, shout out, this is kind of random. I always thought David was just a gorgeous man.
Me too.
I just thought he was a really good looking guy. Even when I was a kid, I was like, he looks like a good guy.
He's really handsome. But then he's got this kind of like, not fuck off energy, but like, don't ever say that to me to my face. Yeah. Right? Like, he doesn't want to hear that shit.
If you're not complimenting his guitar style, then he doesn't want to hear it.
He don't want to hear it.
But I do want to talk about his guitar style a little bit because I love his guitar style.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a huge influence on me and my guitar playing, whatever guitar playing I know how to do. And because he, a lot of people try to like play notes really fast and just like be very technical with their shit. And he just went the complete opposite way.
Yeah.
He's like, I just want to play with as much feel and emotion as possible.
And boy, does he ever. Mm-hmm. Like, he is himself. Like, in that guitar, that's him. Like, it's like, oh, it's so soulful, too. You know what I mean? And very deep, intense, like, touches of his strings and the chords that he plays and stuff. Like, and it's like, it's like you connect to it right away. Like all of his solos and stuff, like it's just very, very nice. He knows exactly where to hit you because he's that type of person, obviously. Mm-hmm. Looks like a very vulnerable, deep thinking person that doesn't like small talk.
Yeah. He's a very like thoughtful person. Yeah. You can just tell, you can tell by the way he plays guitar that he's a very like emotional, thoughtful person.
Yeah.
Cause the way that he plays is just like, it's all about like the space in between the notes and like letting there's no note that he's playing that's extra.
Yeah.
Like every single note that he plays has a purpose of what it's going to make you feel like.
Uh-huh.
You know? And that's a beautiful thing that to this day, I feel like when people are talking about playing guitar with feel, like David Gilmour a lot of the time is who they compare it to. Because there's other guitar players that shred and they do other like kind of techniques, but as far as just like the fewer notes, more emotion, like I always, at least in my head, I always associate that with him. You know?
Why not?
What are you gonna do about it? All right. Okay. So, where are we at?
So David's there, and they're picking up the pieces, and they're going through the albums. They're throwing all that stuff against the wall, and Roger's coming up with some interesting album ideas, and they're like, no, we want to float pigs.
Oh yeah, at one point they brought in like a whole like orchestra with like a brass section. Like Adam Hart Mother I think Roger was like, we were trying to score an epic movie that didn't exist. Which is pretty cool.
That is cool.
And we talk about it's really funny because we talk about these like middle period albums like they're not great. The music is still very good. It's just overshadowed by their later albums.
Yes.
And it's like if they didn't make the later albums that were huge and they just kept staying in that vein, they still would have been a successful band.
I think so. I like Umagama.
Yeah, I like that. I like Adam Hart Mother. But I mean, they wouldn't have been as big as they became, but they still would have been able to make a living off their music, I think.
Yeah.
It's still good music. You know what I mean? But this is something that we were talking about earlier, how they kind of like didn't want them to be the spotlight. And that showed itself not only in the stage shows, how they, as time goes on, they just made the stage shows crazier and crazier and crazier. Yeah. Crazier lights, crazier sounds, crazier projections, all this stuff. And then even their album covers, like they were like, we don't want us to be on the album cover.
Yeah. And I love that idea. Like I've like always felt like I had talent and like these are the things that I like do pretty well in and stuff like that. But I've never enjoyed really like the huge notoriety of it. Nowadays things are different. Like you have to put yourself out there. You have to get your face seen and stuff. Yeah. But like I always admired artists like Pink Floyd and like Björk, people who you didn't really know what they look like because of their album art, or people that you saw in Best Buy and there wasn't a mob of people running after them. They were just able to just go do their thing. And like these guys are totally those guys.
Right. Yeah. And it's really cool because, you think about it now. I mean, nowadays I could just Google image search David Gilmour and be like, oh, wow, look how handsome he is. But back in the day, if all you know is the music, you go and you buy an album cover and you just see like their next album, Metal, is just like a zoom in of like a pig's ear, and you're just like, who the fuck is this? You know what I mean? You're listening to the music, you're like, this is great, like, but where did this come from? Like, who are these people?
Right.
Like, it would really make you curious. Not only would it make you a little curious about who the band is, but it makes you focus more on the music.
Yeah.
Because it's not like, Van Halen, you're just like, oh, I can totally see, David Lee Roth doing crazy shit and Eddie Van Halen, tearing up the guitar. It's not about the individuals.
Right.
Right? It's about the music.
Yeah.
At least it wasn't about the individuals yet. Roger.
I'm call him RW.
So then after Adam Hart Mother, they do Metal, which is like they're starting to figure it out now.
Yeah.
You can really tell when you listen to that album. They're really getting somewhere. And it has one of my favorite songs on it, Echoes.
Yeah.
Like a 20-minute, it's like a whole side of an album. It's like there's so many different parts and sections to it, and they all sound great. And it's like you must have. And it was the end of the album, right? So I'm just trying to put myself in that time. It's like 1971. You listen to this album, and it finishes on Echoes, this epic song that's like all these different parts like all go into each other, and that's how the album ends. You must have felt like, oh, they're doing some big stuff,
right?
You know what I mean?
Right. It's crazy. It's funny. When you look at an artist's discography, especially like artists that had such a vast one like Pink Floyd. They put their blood, sweat, and tears into every single album. And still, you can find an album and be like, they're not there yet. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But at the time, at that moment, you're like, they're progressing. So you're like, this is so great.
Right.
Like, can it get better? Like, you know what I mean? Like, of course it can and stuff, but it's just so interesting because like you put everything into that album and you feel like you really, but I guess it's just for that time. You did go over the moon and you did do really, really, really great. It's just like later on you look back and you're just like, man, we were just children in the music world here. Right. That's crazy.
But it's really interesting how it works because all of those things that we were talking about, how Syd left and then they kind of were left on their own and they had to figure it out and they're experimenting with all these different things. It all basically culminates in their album after Metal. I don't remember what it's called. Dark Side of the Sun?
I think
Is there a Dark Side of the Sun?
I think.
Were they there?
No.
Oh, wait. Oh, Dark Side of the Moon.
Oh, yeah.
My bad, everyone.
Oh, totally forgot about that one.
And this is like, I don't even know. I mean, we could probably do a whole podcast just on this album.
Yeah, because it's so epic. It's just really is. And it's not even long.
It's like 40 minutes, something like that. I mean, this album is like, I've said this before, like I put this album up there with like the greatest pieces of art that humans have ever created. Like not just music, like whatever, fucking the Sistine Chapel, the Sphinx, like whatever the hell you want to say, like that, you gotta, like, that's up there. Like, as long as humans exist and you can listen to music, that album is never gonna die.
Never, ever, ever gonna die. And it's like, it's the album along with the artwork, because I can't even tell you which I heard or saw first. And I'm talking like before I was even like 10 years old, because like that album artwork is epic. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I hate to use this word because everybody does. It's iconic.
It really is. If anything's iconic, it's that. Honestly.
I
mean, that's the kind of shit that you see fucking hipsters walking around Williamsburg wearing that shit. You're like, they might not necessarily even know what it is.
Yeah.
But everybody knows what that looks like.
Everybody does. It's just so amazing. And like, to be able to do that, and to be able to register in people's like ears and stuff like that when they don't even really know who you are or anything like that. That's just insane. I say the same thing about the Beatles. I'm not a Beatles fan, but I guarantee I heard Beatles music in the womb. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just crazy. But yeah, Pink Floyd, they go and they do Dark Side of the Moon and like everything falls off the planet. They shook everything off the planet with that one.
They fell all the way off of Earth to the moon, but I don't think they made it all the way to the dark side. It was kind of far. They ran out of water. But no, the thing about this album that makes it so good and so timeless is that it's just about like the human experience or the human condition, if you will. Like it's about war, insanity, money, greed, like all these death, things that as long as humans exist, humans are going to be dealing with this shit.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why it's never, it really is timeless. And then obviously like the actual production value of it is so amazing. I still can't believe. So we're recording this in 2022. That album came out in 1973. So next year that album's 50 years old. Mm-hmm. And it sounds just as good as anything that's made now.
It really does. It really does. It's definitely one of my rooftop listens, various songs from that album, just jumping in and out and just listening to the words. It's not even just the music. It's the words that they decided to pick and choose. You know, it's totally insane. Like, I love... What does David say? Like, the dream is gone, the man is grown. Like, it's like I forgot what he says.
Well, that's Uncomfortably Numb, right?
Yeah, that's a different album. But I'm just like bringing out like just like stuff that he says and things that they do say. Like, it's just like, I don't know. It's their word choice and it's also their musicality that just makes them great.
Yeah,
but
and just like the whole. I mean, obviously there were concept albums before. There was like songs that would like go into other songs, but this is basically one big piece of music.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like the only reason there was a pause in it is because back in the day you literally had to flip the album over. Mm-hmm. If they made it today, there wouldn't have been any pauses.
No,
100%. They would have gone all the way through. But literally every song just goes perfectly into every other song, and it really is just a whole experience. Like, it's so hard to just listen to one song from that album.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? You just want to hear the whole thing through.
Yeah, they flow right into it. I love I don't know any album before that came with like mad laughter, you know, and stuff like that. And then that have a person actually sound like maddening like that. And we got to shout out all the background vocals. Like, oh my gosh, I keep forgetting that lady's name.
Claire Torrey.
Yeah. Like,
I think
she took that to a whole nother level because she's always in the forefront, even though, and the voices get bigger and bigger and bigger. They get bigger and bigger and bigger, but you always seem to hear kind of her like as the leader of the choir. Mm-hmm. And this is another style of that type of singing that I like, where it's kind of like flat and tonal, and you're kind of singing like wide as opposed to like out too much. Like her oohs and her ahs kind of go wide across, if I'm making shapes for sounds.
Yeah.
You know, and I just think like that in itself, it's the whole thing like that makes that album so great. It's not just the players and it's not just the music. It's not the progression in the sounds and stuff like that. It's not just the background vocals. It's not just the artwork. It's like every single part of that album.
Exactly. Every single part of it is just on point. And that's why it's one of the greatest pieces of art ever made. And I think it has the record for like longest time on the charts. I think it was on the charts for like 20 fucking years. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Like, I'm pretty sure by the time it fell off the charts, like Kurt Cobain was already dead.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Think so.
Like,
I think
that's
so.
Insane.
That's
insane. But I mean, I don't even know what else to say about it. It's just so amazing. Like, I'm going to assume that everybody watching this has already heard it.
I hope so.
But if you haven't, go listen to it right after this.
Yeah.
But make sure to finish the podcast first.
Yeah. Yeah. They put Money Out as the single for that song, which of course they had to. For that.
Boom, 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 boom.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that, like the cadence, because I think around when we first met each other, we were talking about the cadence in that song, and I was like, if I didn't speak English, I would never understand what he was saying in that song because it's the way he chops up his words. And you expect, like, if you're learning a new language, you expect the words to sound a certain way. Mm. So if I broke up the word on a music bar and stuff like that, like, you couldn't understand it. Like, if I said I'm in a high fidelity, like, you know, instead of fidelity, like,
right.
if I know that word in English but I don't know fidelity,
right? Like,
I would be like, what did he say?
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of that song too, and a lot of the other things that are on the album.
And it's a beauty of, well, part of that I think has to do with that the song is in 7/8 time, as opposed to most music is in 4/4, and so that you have to kind of change the rhythm a little bit. And fun fact, the guitar solo in that is in 4/4 because David Gilmour was like, I can't play a guitar solo in 7/8. So I imagine he probably had to change the way that he sang it a little bit because of that too.
Yeah, because the only other way I could see him approaching it is kind of like jumping over the notes, like I'm in a high fidelity, like that, and that's corny.
Yeah.
For that track, it's corny, but it's cool for like jazz.
Yeah. But really, this album is kind of like the culmination of them creating together. Mm-hmm. because all 4 members of the band were really involved with the final sound of the album,
right?
Which is not the case moving forward necessarily. And then also, this is really the first album where Roger Waters became like, okay, I'm the lyricist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they were saying that like a lot of the time during this era, they would work on the music, and then Roger would be like, okay, I'll come back tomorrow with lyrics or whatever. So it clearly became like, this was the start of Roger being like the leader.
Yeah.
Which was good for a while, but it ended up having some problems later on.
Just a little bit.
But that became basically the start of what I like to call Pink Floyd classic. Mm-hmm. The classic period of the Pink Floyd sound, you know? Mm-hmm. And obviously this album just brought them to a whole nother stratosphere of success.
Yeah.
They were already around, they already were signed, they were already making music, but they put that out and it's like, you're the biggest band in the world. Exactly.
I think the terminology is they put their foot in that album.
They put their whole leg. They went all the way up to the knee in that album. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So that's hilarious. So they're huge. Big bad rock stars on the planet. Roger's becoming sort of an invisible bully along the way.
What do you mean by invisible?
You gotta throw the rock and hide your hand sometimes. You gotta say, who, me?
I don't think he was trying to hide, though.
No, I think he was really up in people's face.
He was throwing rocks and saying, what's up?
Intimidating people. But to the fans, he was not.
Well, because again, they don't even like to have their faces around.
No.
Like, it's not about them necessarily. It's more about the music. Even
right.
though Roger kind of, he lets the success kind of get to his head a little bit. But, we're getting to that. But again, the stage shows are just getting crazy and crazy. The focus isn't really on them so much. Right. And they continue doing that. So the next album they're working on, this is crazy. Wish You Were Here is like, I guess I'll just tell the story real quick.
Go for it.
The Syd story?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're working on this album after they've got all the success and they're starting to see like the bullshit of like the industry.
We should play Wish You Were Here in the background while you're telling this story.
I
you
wish.
Edit it.
I don't want to get copyrighted.
No, you won't.
do copyrighted.
You play the Muzak version of it.
Do. I thought I warned you. Roger's gonna come knocking at my door.
He's in New York. Didn't somebody take a picture of him on the train? Just reading a magazine?
Recently?
Yes, it was like celebrities on the train. It's pre-COVID, but the pictures showed up the year of COVID. And it was so many different people. And he's like, got his legs crossed. He's reading the paper. And they're like, Roger Waters.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he could do that. Nobody's going to talk to him on the train.
Hell, because he's going to bully them. Just he's coming to your door in a second.
So it's funny, the contrast between David and Roger. Like, David seems like a really sweet guy who might, like, have to put on, like, a bit of a tough exterior to guard himself.
Yeah.
Where Roger is just, like, he's not fucking around with anyone. He doesn't give a shit about your feelings. You know what I mean? Like,
I just see him running towards me.
Like, and he's the biggest dude in the band, too. He's, like, a tall motherfucker.
Yeah.
So he must be kind of an intimidating presence.
Yeah. Like...
You're
like playing it
like just play the bass.
Yeah.
I won't talk shit, I swear. But so now he's kind of taken over as the leader of the band.
Yep.
They're back in the studio. He's writing songs about, the record label being bullshit. The main story there is, they're blowing up. Like, the record label guy's like, oh, yeah, you great. I love you guys for forever. By the way, which one is Pink? And they're just like, oh, okay. We see what's happening here.
Exactly.
None of us are fucking Pink, dude. You don't know who we are. I get it. So they're now disillusioned with, success a little bit. Mm-hmm. And again, they still have the ghost of Syd hovering over them the whole time. Like, the possible insanity of the life that they live, in a way. So they're writing this album almost as a tribute to him, now that they've achieved this amazing success that they wouldn't have achieved without him.
Absolutely.
He started the whole thing.
Yeah.
And, I think they were probably a little guilty about how things ended with him, honestly, because they just kind of dumped him.
Yeah.
But he clearly needed a lot of help.
Yeah. But he's British, so he understood.
I don't even know if he understood English at that time.
Exactly.
So they basically, this album, they're making it as a tribute to their fallen leader. So they're writing, like, one of their most famous songs, Shine On You Crazy Diamonds, about him. They're writing a song, Wish You Were Here. It's about him. And the thing that's crazy about this is they're recording this album as the tribute to Syd. And this is some weird cosmic shit. We were talking about this earlier. Like, the universe has made this happen.
Yes.
While they're in the studio working on these songs, kind of commemorating their fallen friend, if you will, which is weird because, you know, again, he's not dead. But he's, for all intents and purposes, he's dead to the band.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You're dead to us, Syd. You're
dead. So they're working on these songs, and all of a sudden this dude comes in the studio, this like fat dude, he's fucking shaved head. I don't even know how he got in the studio, but he got in there.
He did.
And they were kind of just like looking at him, this guy, like, who the fuck is this?
He's magical. He walked through the wall. That's how he got there.
Yeah, he levitated all the way to the studio. And then at some point, they're just kind of looking at him. They're like, oh my God, that's Syd. They didn't even recognize him.
They did not recognize him. He was checking out the guitars. He was looking at the studio stuff, which is like, I mean, he's still drawn to the music, but just can't do anything with it. And they had a picture of him too. And now that picture, just like in their memory, it's ingrained in my memory too, which is like insane.
Yeah. It's just crazy that like he would happen to show up when they're writing about him, basically. And it had an effect on the band.
Yeah.
I mean, that was quite an emotional experience for them.
It was. David and Roger said they cried. They literally cried. And I would too, because I feel sad now talking about it. So imagine if you actually knew him and you watched him regress, you know, and then you because you have to actually come to terms with yourself and admit that can happen to somebody. Like, you know, and what... I mean, I'm of course there's differences between you and other people, but in a way, like, why him? Like, why, you know, how? In a way, it's like there's so many unanswered things in your mind because he seemed of sound mind and you do too. And then all of a sudden something like that happens to him. And that's just insane.
Yeah. So again, he's really the ghost following them around. This time, actually, physically in person. Yeah. But the idea of him was always kind of around them.
Yeah.
And kind of probably added to a little bit of the paranoia of like the lyrics.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's true too.
And some of Roger's just like general bitterness, I would say.
Roger, you bitter, bitter man, Roger. You're a bitter man.
Yeah. So they put out that album. Obviously it does really well. They're doing bigger and bigger shows. They're having a bigger, you know, stage production, all of this
that
shit.
Zeppelin. No, yeah. I'm just kidding.
No, it is funny because, I mean, they were like, you know, Zeppelin, like, at the time, it's like, for hard rock, Zeppelin was number one.
Yeah.
And progressive rock, Pink Floyd was number one.
Yeah.
And there were other successful hard rock and progressive rock bands.
Who? No, I'm just kidding.
Never heard of them. But for all intents and purposes, like, they were the absolute cream of the crop.
Yeah.
Like, they were the most successful commercially. And, like, I mean, not to talk shit about any other bands, but I think their stuff holds up more than, like, people talk about Pink Floyd now a lot more than they talk about Yes.
Yeah, they
no
definitely
offense
do.
to any Yes fans, but we all know it's true.
Yeah, they definitely talk about them more. I mean, Genesis broke up, but they definitely talk about Pink Floyd more than they do about Genesis. Genesis should have had a logo. Sorry, I'm going off topic.
That's
here.
where you fucked up, Peter. All right, do better next time. All right, so they put out the album. Success keeps coming. Got to work on another album. And again, they're dealing at this point with the level that they're operating on. They have to deal with all this corporate bullshit because, you know, everyone starts out, you know, playing when they started out just playing cover songs. They were just, you know, probably in like a garage or whatever, playing little clubs. It wasn't a lot of money. It wasn't a big business.
Yeah.
But now there's just so much money involved with this that they have to deal with all this business shit. They have to deal with the records. They have to deal with taxes. They have to deal with all this stupid shit.
Yep. Bring in the suits.
So Roger, being the biting social critic that he is, he gets working on this concept for an album called Animals.
Yeah. Loosely
based on the book Animal Farm by George Orwell, but not really like as far as what happens in the album, just the idea of like the humanized animals or whatever.
Yeah.
So this album is all just completely like trying to like destroy the idea of capitalism, really.
Yeah.
And he basically divides humans into 3 categories, right? So we got the pigs.
Yep.
They're the fat cats. They're all these people that... Which one is pig? That's who they are.
Yeah.
They're just the ones that are running the show behind the scenes. People don't really know who they are,
right?
But they got the money and they're pulling the strings.
Yeah,
and they're sitting in their pig pens, eating it up, getting all that money, getting nice and fat.
They got the power.
They got the power.
First you get the money, then you get the power.
Then you get their women or the female pigs. All right, so you got the pigs. Then you got the dogs. Who basically are the ones that do the work of the pigs.
Yes.
Like they're the ones on the front lines. They're the fucking really aggressive ones. They're they're the stockbrokers.
Yeah.
They're the mortgage brokers. They're the ones that are just like really power hungry.
Yeah.
They want to be pigs. They want to be pigs.
Right.
But they're not there yet. They're the foot soldiers.
Not yet, yeah. So that's your manager, your guy that's coming around that's actually watching the show, wants to possibly sign you. That guy.
And then who do we have last?
The sheep.
What do they do?
They baa all around. They just baa. Looking cute and white and cottony and curly.
They just follow the crowd. They just do whatever they have to do to live a comfortable life. And they're just being controlled by the pigs and the dogs.
Being controlled. But the sheep are the hottest song on that album.
That's true.
To me, yeah.
Well, at the end, the sheep rise up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not to spoil the album, but...
That's right. They rise up, they shave that cotton off, and they make shirts. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No more lamb. No more wool shirts. Only pigskin. So...
We're out of control.
Yeah. Hey, are we the Music Maniacs or what? So they put out that album. Again... Huge success. They're just still big. They're huge. They're the biggest band in the world. More things are happening as far as like their stage setup. I mean, they're literally their album cover. They got a giant inflatable pig over a fucking main power station in Britain. It's like a huge production now.
Yeah.
They got flying pigs at their shows.
Exactly. And they actually floated that pig up in real life, which is even more hilarious.
Yeah, and it got lost.
Yeah.
Like they had to bring in like the Royal Air Force or some shit.
Where'd it go?
I think like it got untethered and it started like flying around and like it started like fucking with air traffic. I'm pretty sure that's real. I don't know if somebody just said that and thought it was real, but I'm pretty sure that's real.
This will be great bonus content. You could just tell a story about that. How the pig came back with stamps from different countries on it.
Yeah, he came back with a full passport.
Exactly. He had a sombrero on.
With in a margarita in hand or paw or. What do pigs have? Hooves. Yeah. Margarita and hoof.
He's like, what? Anyway, okay, we're out of control.
So they're getting bigger and bigger still. And Roger is still very disillusioned with the whole fame thing.
Yeah.
And again, they're not putting themselves out there like that. They don't really they want it to be about the music. They're not focused on themselves. They're not putting their faces on the album.
Yeah.
You know, none of that stuff. Like Roger is still just like, he's appreciative of the people that want to see them. You know, but he's fucking annoyed with them too.
Yes. Roger says, I see myself getting more and more bitter. That's a quote.
Yeah, and what else do bitter people do but spit on your own fans at shows? The dude literally spit on a guy at the show. I don't know what the guy was saying to him. Hey, Roger, you play bass like a fucking loser. So he straight up spits on the dude at the show. And then, like, after the show, he's like, I can't believe I just fucking did that. Like... And he's kind of like disgusted with himself almost.
Well.
And he kind of, because of that, he kind of starts to form the idea of a new concept album. And that leads to their next album, The Wall.
Yes. I don't know why he didn't just spit on himself and just call it a day, but he had to make a whole album.
And the whole Wall album is very much based on his life.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the protagonist in the album. It's a rock opera, so it's a whole story.
Yeah.
Right? The protagonist, like his dad dies before he ever met him in World War II, which is what happened to Roger. And then he grows up and becomes, you know, a big famous rock guy. And the whole concept of the album is like all these things that are alienating him, all these things that are causing him stress, like his dad being dead, fucking like his mom like treating it, being overprotective. His fans being fucking losers or They're all just bricks in a wall
Yeah.
that he's building up to shield himself from the world.
Yeah.
Right?
Poor Roger.
So it's so crazy, though. Like, the concept of the show is like they're literally, while they're performing, they're slowly building an entire wall on stage and then knocking it down.
Yeah.
Like, that is like the absolute height of the theater, like, performance.
Yeah.
Like, they really were like, this is not just about 4 people playing instruments. This is the whole fucking production. Like, don't get it twisted. Like, you come to a Pink Floyd show, you're getting a show.
You're getting a show. You're getting a cement truck churning that cement out.
Cement truck on stage.
Bricklayers, spackling,
That's
everything,
right.
all of it.
Yeah, and this was also a really weird time for the band because they were kind of broke actually at the time.
Yeah, well, surprise, surprise.
Yeah. They actually left England for a little bit. They went to France for like a few months to avoid taxes.
Cheap-ass France.
They took a tax holiday.
Did they?
Yeah.
Okay.
So then now they're like recording this and they're basically like, fuck, we don't have any money. Like, this album has to do good or we're fucked. But there's also a lot of personal tensions in the band at this point because now Roger, the ego is totally full at his head. And he's like, Pink Floyd is my band. I am Pink Floyd and Pink Floyd is me. You know what I mean? Because he's writing all the lyrics, but he's still not ever like the musical spark. Like, I think at this point, David was the one that was really creating the really like musically powerful things.
Right.
And their partnership is really what made these albums so good.
Exactly. Earth to Roger.
Right. So he, at this point, he's like, I am Pink Floyd. Hey, Richard, what the fuck are you doing here? You don't add anything. You don't contribute anything. Why don't you just get out?
Richard said, don't mind if I do.
He was like, all right, but I'm still going to play the shows. Roger's like, fine. So during the tour for that album, technically Richard Wright wasn't even a full member of the band. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Which is just crazy. Like, he's just, Roger's ego is just starting to completely tear the band apart.
He's like, somebody's got to go crazy in this band, and I think it's going to be me.
Yeah. It's a weird thing that happens when you get to that level of success and like the spotlight is on you more or less. It's like you start to get sometimes you really do start to think that you are the band. Mm-hmm. And there's another band that I'm thinking of specifically that happens to, but we'll talk about them on a different episode. But he dumps Richard, and everybody's pretty much annoyed at him now.
Yeah, wrong move, Raj. Anyway.
And the thing that's funny is that the album still does so well.
Yeah.
It sells millions and millions of copies. Mm-hmm. Huge tour. They make a movie out of it.
Yeah.
All this crazy shit. But the relationship within the band basically couldn't be worse.
It's just so disheartening.
Yeah.
I wonder what it is. What is the actual thing? Like, I want to sell this commercial to Pan Am. I don't want to sell this commercial to Pan Am. That's preposterous.
Wait, you think you have anything to do with our success? I don't think so. I am Pink Floyd. Right?
Me! And then he laughs. Ha, 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 ha. And then turns into the floating pig. Holy shit.
He metamorphoses. Behind a wall, though, so you can't see it happen.
Can't see it. But he's fat. No, I'm just kidding.
So they put out another album as Pink Floyd, but this is basically, at this point, it's a Roger Waters solo album.
Yeah.
Like, they said, like, the other members, they're like, we basically weren't even involved.
Yeah. Wow.
It's called The Final Cut.
Yeah.
Still does well. The music is still great. None of this music is bad.
Yeah,
That's the thing to think about.
Yeah, no one dislikes Roger Waters' music. We just don't like his bitterness.
Yeah.
He's pretty bitter.
Pretty bitter. And he's like, you know what? Pink Floyd is so my band that I don't even need them anymore. I'm just going to go off and do my own thing. Mm-hmm. But y'all can't be Pink Floyd anymore because I'm Pink Floyd.
That's right.
And David Gilmour said, you thought, bitch.
That's right.
What do you think this is, bro?
What?
Yeah. He's like, you ain't playing me like that, dog.
Not at all.
So there was like a legal battle.
Of course. Because you're talking about David Gilmour. You're not talking about a hired hand. I wonder if Roger Waters was saying, I'm fucking Roger Waters, bitch. Was he saying stuff like that?
I really couldn't imagine him saying that, but I really could imagine him saying, I am Pink Floyd.
Yes, I am Pink
Floyd.
What about, I'm fucking Roger Waters?
I'm Roger fucking Waters.
How about, yeah.
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 You're nothing without me.
Ha 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 ha. You know, he has to add that.
And David's like, nah, fam. So they're like, we're gonna keep being Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
This is, you know, I was watching an interview with them. They're like, you got to think about, like, they've been, you know, for the last 20 years, it's like, oh, who's David Gilmour? Oh, he's the guitarist from Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
Oh, who's Richard White? Oh, he's the keyboardist from Pink Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that was such a part of their identity.
Yeah.
That they're not just going to let that be because Roger doesn't want anything to do with it anymore.
Because Roger say so. Roger... why are you acting like you don't know these people? Like you just met them.
I know, it's so crazy.
They're arguing and they're all turning into the different animals while they're arguing. Roger's yelling and laughing and he's turning into a pig. And like David's like, what do you think I am? Your fucking dog? And he turns into a German shepherd. He's like, yeah.
And then Nick and Rick just turned into sheep, I guess.
They're just like, well,
Sorry,
we're not
guys.
really in it.
They're like, hey, this seems like your fight, but we want to be Pink Floyd still.
Exactly.
So I'm on Team David.
I'm on Team David. And you know what? So it turned out Roger did like the fame.
Yeah, but it is really funny though, because so when Roger left, he was like, "I'm taking the Pink Floyd name. Y'all can't do it anymore. I'm leaving Pink Floyd." And the rest of them were just kind of like, "Okay, leave. We'll still do it.
Exactly.
I don't care." And apparently Roger was like,
I'm sure he started storming off, and then he was like,
"What?" So they just never stopped. So now it was really cool. This is like we said before, like there's so many different versions of Pink Floyd, and that's the end of the second version basically when Roger leaves, and now it's the third version where David is the leader.
Yeah.
And they're still making really beautiful music.
Yeah.
The next album they do is called A Momentary Lapse of Reason, and they're still under the Pink Floyd name. And now Roger's out doing solo work,
Yes.
and this made me laugh so hard. I saw an interview with Roger, with the pig himself, and he said, "I love you, Roger. Don't hate me." He was like, yeah, so, you know, I was playing my solo albums in front of like 2,000 people in a 6,000 seat venue. And then the next night, this was in Cincinnati, I think. He's like, and then the next night, Pink Floyd, they were playing a football stadium in front of 75,000 people playing my songs.
G's up, hoes down, Roger.
And he was like, shit. Maybe I fucked up. Because this is the thing. It's like, you think that you're Pink Floyd, but Pink Floyd is just bigger than just you, dude.
Yeah.
And the people know that, too.
Yeah.
Like, the people know, like, it's not just the lyrics. If it was just the lyrics, you would be a famous poet, dude.
You would.
You know what I mean?
Because I came for David's solos. I don't know about you. I came for David's solos.
So Roger's gone and Pink Floyd is still doing it.
Rocking the
and
party.
And they're still, I mean, A Momentary Lapse of Reason, that's still sold like 9-10 million records.
Yeah.
Like, they're still one of the greatest selling bands, period. And they're still killing it. They're not letting Roger not being there stop them, which must have just made him so mad.
Exactly. Roger, who we formerly are calling Wah Wah now.
Wah Wah Waters. My favorite bass player of all time.
We're sorry, Mr. Roger Waters. We're never going to England.
You had it coming, bro. It's okay. He said now he was just like, I was wrong. Like, he admits now, he was like, I erroneously tried to say that I was the band.
Yeah.
And he realized that he was wrong. Like, at the time, he was just so pumped up on ego that he wasn't able to take that step back to be like, this is crazy. Like, they've been part of Pink Floyd this whole time too. Like, it's not just me. But he does realize it now that he was wrong. And he was definitely in the wrong.
He probably went vegan instead of like just being a big pig. Like, you know, because like you can't see your belly button. So how are you going to see everybody else?
So he turned into a stalk of asparagus.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are no more songs about you now.
So Roger's gone. Pink Floyd continues on. They put out another album, The Division Bell. Mm-hmm. Still great. It's all great music.
Yeah.
But that was the last album that they put out as Pink Floyd.
Right.
Because at that point, it's just like, you've been doing it for 30 years.
Yeah.
You're like, what else do we have to do?
Yeah. It's
we've been on top for fucking decades.
Yeah. And like, it was clear that they didn't have a whole bunch of illegitimate children, so they didn't have to constantly be on the road.
I mean, yeah, why else would you be on the road? You got mouths to feed, dog. But they recorded the Division Bell in David's studio, which was on a boat, which is just so funny to me. I'm like, why? I'm like, is that good for the sound, or you just wanted to stun on somebody?
I
Like,
think so.
hey, come to my houseboat. We'll record in there. It's like, all right. But actually thinking about it, that might have affected the music a little bit. If you could just, like, sail out to sea.
Yeah. The acoustics, it definitely has something to do with it. It probably makes it a lot warmer too. And he's a warm sound kind of guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And their song, I think we were just talking about this. They have a song on there called Marooned, which Marooned, that's a very, oceany thing.
That's true. Marooned on a desert island or something.
And that song goes on to win a Grammy, I believe.
Yes, it did. Yeah, we were talking about that. Yeah, we were talking about their Grammy wins. How that's the only one, and that's like 1995. And that doesn't. The other ones don't have Grammys. They're definitely in the Grammy Hall of Fame, but this is more like posthumously. I don't really know how to pronounce that word a lot.
I think that was right.
Posthumous.
Yeah.
Okay, and they're not dead, but Pink Floyd is no more, so they're there.
But Dark Side of the Moon is still on the charts.
Still on the charts. I mean, no Grammys, but that's okay, right? Because Nas don't have a Grammy. A lot of artists.
Who needs Grammys when you got money?
Milli Vanilli needs Grammys. Vanilla Ice needs Grammys.
That's right. But yeah, so after that album, I think they do one last tour, and then they pretty much call it a day.
Yeah.
They do end up reuniting once in 2005 for Live Aid. And it's funny, like, you look at that footage and watching it that Roger knows that he fucked up.
Yeah, because they didn't even want to touch him at the end of the show. Like, David's like, and Roger's like, no.
Well, he looked like he was having such a good time. Roger did. He was like, oh, it's great to be back. He's like smiling, and the rest of them just kind of like, I still don't really want anything to do with you, bro. You kind of fucked us over, dude. Like, I thought we were boys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's really interesting to see. But
yeah,
it is cool that they kind of had that last moment, though.
I mean, for us, it's cool.
Yeah.
We don't know what happened backstage. They walk off, and then Roger's like, "Get the fuck away from me!" You don't know. Like,
it was funny the way I think Nick was saying. He's like, "Yeah, well, we invited him. We were like, look, Pink Floyd is playing Live Aid." And we're Pink Floyd. If you want to play the songs with us, that's cool. But Pink Floyd is doing Live Aid. You know what I mean? And Roger's like, all right, yeah, fuck it. I'll come through. And yeah, it just looked like he was having a great time. And he must have at that point been like, man, I kind of messed up. We could have done this more.
Yeah, like, how could you do it, Raj? How could you do it?
But yeah, I mean, that's basically the whole story of Pink Floyd.
Yeah, basically that's it. And then I love how these guys have aged. I love to still hear them talk. I mean, they could do anything and still make money. They don't have to put out an album. Like I said, just write books, teach master classes, things like that. Like, I mean, wow.
I would pay for a David Gilmour guitar masterclass.
Absolutely. For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's just, Pink Floyd, it's one of those things they changed so much. Like, they changed what the idea of music could be with, like, all these extra things they added in. And, like, again, just, like, obviously this didn't actually happen, but just, like, Roger's, like, idea of, like, let's make a whole album out of household items. Like, just, like, the creativity of that, it really is influential. Even if they don't really make that happen, just to be thinking of things in that way, it's a good thing for artists.
Yeah. I think the beauty of them is, like, they really sonically picked up life, because even like right now we're recording, there's music playing outside, there's little sounds from apartments upstairs and stuff like that. And that's like what they did with their album. So that's their thing,
Yeah. And some of their music, it really is timeless. And it just, as long as humans are around, it's not going to die.
Right.
And that's, I don't know. That's the thing that always I think about when I think of Pink Floyd, because like some of their songs I listen to them, they're just so beautiful.
Yeah,
it's like you don't really even know why sometimes they hit you in such an emotional spot, but they just do. And it's one thing to have the experience of losing your singer to mental illness and all that shit, but to be able to take that and turn it into this kind of music is not something that everyone would be able to do.
Right.
But they did it.
They did.
And here we are in 2022 talking about them. You know what I mean? So big shout out to our patron, Ben Guevara, our newest patron. All right. We wanted to shout him out because if y'all don't know, our Patreon, patreon.com/musicmaniacs, is basically how we're able to like continue to do this and like support the podcast.
Right.
And he's our newest member. So big shout out to Ben.
Hey.
We just wanted to say that. If y'all want to support the podcast, go to patreon.com/musicmaniacs.
Yep.
We'll do bonus content there for every episode. We'll say your name on the podcast, and you get to tell us what I almost said albums. What podcast we should do. So go over there, check it out. Patreon.com/musicmaniacs. Listen to our music, Side After Dark, wherever you stream music.
Yep.
Am I forgetting anything?
Like, share, subscribe, give a hug and a kiss, buy a sad t-shirt. Come see us play music in New York City on April 19th. We got so much stuff to say.
Oh, yeah, we do have shit to say. Come see us at the Parkside Lounge.
Yeah.
April 19th, 317 Houses Street.
Syd won't be there.
Only in spirit.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it for this one, I think. So thanks for being here. Thanks for being maniacs with us. And we'll see you around.
See ya.